Welcome Motivation Sunday. Welcome Motivation Sunday.
Welcome to another edition of Motivational Sundays. No, it's not Motivational Sundays, it's Motivation Sundays with Kevin and friends. This show was originally created from the contents of the motivation quotes I created for the contents of my book for 300 of those. And after studying human behavior and sitting down with all my good friends, my co-hosts now, Christopher and Gilda James, Anne Marie Maloney, Otis Smith, Spencer, the voice of the show. I'm just screwing up all day long. Larnaz Kinsey, Curtis Battles, Dr. Stephanie Blue, and PJ Schraub. All right. We were just curious. Were these quotes just words that lay there on the page, or were there conversations to be had? We meet every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and someone brings us a quote that is either attached to them or they carried with them throughout their life. And based on our interpretations or perspectives, we talk about these quotes. And you talk about when magic happens, this crew right here, they bring it. So buckle up and sit back and enjoy the show. Welcome to Motivational Sundays with Kevin and friends. And I'm your host, Kevin McLemore. So, without any further ado, I'm going to let the voice of our show introduce the quote for the day. I'm going to give a little spin, and then I'm going to turn it over to Larnaz that brought this quote. We'll find out why. All right, Otis, do your thing.
Great. Happy Sunday to everyone. And today's quote: all that you change, all that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you, by Octavia Butler.
All right, all right. So let me start with today with saying something that we all experience but don't always fully understand, and that is change. Everywhere we go, everything we touch, every conversation we have, we are influenced by something. And at the same time, something is influencing us. The lack of not having static in our life is always moving and evolving. Today's quote reminds me that change is just not something that happens around us, it's something that happens within us. And the question becomes, are we aware of it? Are we intentional with it? And are we growing with it? Because whether we realize it or not, every experience is shaping who we are becoming. And the more we understand that, the more power we have to guide the change, the positive direction inside of each and every last one of us. So, kind of want to set this up for Larnaz and see where she's going to go with this. Larnaz, tell us how this quote landed on you.
Well, blissful rising. First, I want to tell you how this quote came to me. So, one of my good friends, I've been asking her to come on this show every week for 2 years because I've been here for almost 4. And she says, "Oh, girl, no, I'm not going. I can't make it." So when I was asked what quote I was going to choose for this week, I happened to be reading an email from her, and this is her signature for her email. This Octavia Butler quote. So when I first saw the quote in her signature, it felt like it was touching something tender in me, not surface level, something deeper and something lived. So now that I really sat with the quote and peeled back the layers, I'm going to go over what it meant to me. So now all that you touch, you change. You know that feeling when you look back and realize you didn't just pass through people's lives, you moved them? Even when you're unsure, even when you're hurting, even when you didn't have the words, there's a softness in you and maybe just a sincerity that leaves a trace. And if you're honest, you can also feel the weight of that sometimes because not everything you've touched stays whole. Not everything you touch stayed. And part of you wanders or wonders, did I change too much or not enough? And all that you changes you. This is where your chest tightens a little because you can feel who you used to be and you can feel that you're not that person anymore, right? And it didn't happen all at once. It happened in moments, conversations that shifted you, endings that humbled you, lessons you didn't ask for, but had to carry anyway. You've been reshaped by things you tried to hold together, by things you tried to understand, by things you tried to let go of. And maybe you're still grieving versions of yourself that don't exist anymore. And the only lasting truth is change. And this part, this is the one that asks you to release your grip, not because it's easy, but because holding on is what's exhausting you. You've been trying to stabilize something that was never meant to stay still, a feeling, a person, a version of your life, and deep down you know it. So let me say this gently. You are not too much because you change things. You are not lost because you've been changed. You are someone who feels, who touches, who tries, and that will always come with transformation. Right now, you don't need to have the answers. You don't need to have a answer. Just notice what you are still holding on to that is already asking to become something else. And can you, just for a moment, let yourself change with it? And that's how this hit me.
All right. All right. Change is like wearing that favorite pair of shoes. No matter how many you have in the closet, there's just one pair of shoes that just makes you feel kind of special, when you walk into a room or whatever. And the one thing about change, and everyone must understand it before we go over to Christopher. Thanks for having my back earlier, Christopher. Change is constant. And those that um, survive in this life, they adjust, they change because they know it's like throwing a dart at a target in the middle of the night and there's no light. All right, sooner or later you adjust, and sooner or later everything comes into focus. Isn't that right, Christopher? Thanks for having my back when all the ladies were coming on me this morning.
I was muted. I was there for you. I'm thinking of a great comeback. I'm saying, you know what? Maybe I should try. Maybe I should say this, but I was muted. And what can a brother say, man?
Yeah, well, the brother should have said so. I'm going to let the audience in. When we're not on camera, you notice sometimes we have more queens than kings, and I need to learn this, and maybe I need to change. Sometimes I just kind of step in it and I look for help, and I turn around. There's nothing from Otis. There's nothing from Curtis. There's nothing from Chris. And I'm going, how do I get out of this? And the ladies are just all over me. All right. So, men, I just want to let you know when you're in a room with some beautiful queens and whatever, and sometimes when you open your mouth, whisper. All right, Chris, how does this quote land on you?
Thank you, Kevin. Grand Rising, everyone. Um, this is a beautiful quote, and I really liked it for a lot of reasons. But it made me pick apart what it was saying, and not so much I could find a true point in my life where I can reflect on it, but it's more of your entire life. I'm going to bring up one more thing that Kevin talked about prior to broadcast of his mother in her 90s, sitting with her best friend, holding hands. Okay, so this quote, um, it speaks of change, but it starts off with touch. And we've all been with children, watched children, entertained and played with children. And one of the first things they want to do, they see it, but they want to touch it. They want to feel it. And that sort of goes into that never-ending process that a child has of learning or taking in information. And so touch is very important at that point. And with that information, with that touch, comes change. When you say, well, change is everything, Um, I think of a flower, a plant, a tree, anything that starts as a seed and then grows into its um, fullness, its maturity. Um, Everything in life, including us, um, is driven by change. Um, and every single thing that matters to us involves change. It, we've all heard that one adage that the only thing you can count on is change. The only thing that you can depend on is nothing is dependable. But the idea that we're ever learning, ever changing, uh, in some cases, it runs into a sort of a weird roadblock of people that don't like change. And my only conclusion to anyone who doesn't like change is a combination of their evolving, their learning, their maturing, and the ideal of picking up something new and mastering it. In other words, I just received some more information. Now I understand that fully. And then the very next thing they find out is, well, there's another aspect to that thing that you think you know. And now you got to change your whole thought processes. No, I don't want to change. I don't want to change is bad. Change is what we are all about. And in that process of learning new information, evolving, we simply have to go with the flow. Um, to, I guess, give a quick glimpse of what the good life or the perfect life is, that would be one that not only embraces change, but recognizes that every single time they feel a conflict uh, resulting or as being a part of change, it's because they're growing, they're evolving, they're learning more, they're becoming more. And the only, I guess, uh, true evidence of that is when you can sit back and say, you know what, it wasn't like this yesterday. Okay. So, my, I guess, response to that, or my key to that is all of us that can sit back and remember the good old days are simply experiencing what the current days are all about. They're all good.
That sounds like a verse to a song. Uh, Looking back and talk about the good old days and looking at words now. Yeah, you know, you said something that kind of triggered on this within me. Every morning, I write down my first thoughts. I also write down the things that I'm grateful for. But I realize that a conversation without action is just a conversation, just to be having a conversation. So I started um, letting people know that were in my life what I was grateful for. I did it yesterday. Met with when I got to Ohio. First thing I did was unpack and went to see my high school coach. If it had not been for Coach Joe Russo, Kevin would be writing a book about 30 years he spent incarcerated because I was angry. I would fight a flea if a flea showed up in the neighborhood. Um, and when you talk about change, especially the way you position it and how didn't even realize when Larry was holding my mom's hand how important was touch. You ever see those pictures of the baby grabbing the mom or dad's finger, whatever? We need to start touching people more often. We need to hold hands a little longer instead of just shaking and letting it go. And we need to understand that we're all energy. When my energy is shared with all of you guys in energy, we become powerful. And we realize that, you know, the reality of this world are some things that we can't control, but we can't control the environment that we currently in. So that was a beautiful share. I am so grateful that Larnez's friend signed off on her email with this quote. And now we're going to see what PJ is going to come up with and how this quote affected her.
Oh boy. Uh, I don't know if I can talk about this. I did meditate on it all week, and anyway, I'll do my best. So, Larnez, I have an issue. I have an issue. Earlier, last week, a little bird showed up and said, after it was after our podcast, and you were not there. This little bird said, PJ, you didn't cry today. It took me a few days. I'm a little slow. I'm almost like a boy. Sorry, I had to get in after our conversation before. I had to get that. Anyway, yeah, I didn't cry last week because you weren't there. But as soon as you open your mouth today, oh yeah. So I will do my best to talk about this quote. This quote, most of our quotes, they motivate me. I go to work right. This one, no, it didn't. It did motivate, but it didn't just motivate. It quietly rearranged the furniture of how I see myself in the world. It wasn't about go out and change the world, because change is a part of the natural order of things. And Chris, you helped me out here when you mentioned the good old days, is when you said that. And I was thinking about this and what I was going to say. And I thought of a story, like a happy memory from my childhood. Rare, but there were some. I had this little record player next to my bed, and I'm still a dreadful insomniac. And when I went to sleep, I figured out that if I raised the arm of the little record player and left it there, that the needle would go back to the very beginning, right in the groove there. Miracle. Right back to the last song on that album, and it would play over and over and over again until my father snuck in and turned it off. That song was on an Aretha Franklin album, and it was the Sam Cooke song, A Change Is Gonna Come. My first favorite song, and I would go to sleep hearing it over and over and over. So, well, thank you, Chris. The good old days. That's what I thought of, and I'll be meditating on that all week. But thinking about this quote and the meditation I had on it, now we know change is not coming. Sam Cooke was wrong. Change is not coming. It's already in the room, sipping on our coffee. Change is in the friction. It's in the setbacks. It's in the moments that make you want to walk away. And this week, didn't want to walk away. I wanted to run away. Tough week. I wanted to run away from the noise. I wanted to run away from the pressure. I wanted to run away from the constant resistance that we get in life. But I thought, thanks to Larnez and her quote, I thought maybe this isn't something to escape. Maybe this is something to move through. The only lasting truth is change. So I stay, not perfectly, not gracefully, but intentionally. Because you don't have to move a mountain. You just have to keep moving. The end.
You know something? She didn't just drop the mic. She laid it on the floor and just walked away. And everyone's focusing on the mic. It amazes me. Until you are aware of how the environment is affecting you. You don't know how to adjust to the environment. Awareness allows us to guide our personal growth. And PJ, as you were sharing that, I thought about Larnez had mentioned that, we've gone into 4 years, going into 5 years doing this show. There's been a lot of people that have come and been co-hosts on this show. But then I look at, my ride and dies that show up every single Sunday. People come and go and whatever. And I have to tell you, looking back and looking at the quality of the show, the quality of the content of the show, with the people that we have on here, early on, and this happens with everyone that's starting out fresh, because you don't know where you're going when you start an idea or you create something. But, Naeem always said we're building a plane while flying. I think we start they have all the parts in here, and we're a world-class airline right now with the team that we have on here. And I hope the people that uh, have followed the show and watched the show have seen the transformation and the quality of the show. This is solid gold right now with the group of people we have on here. So it's being aware of change and being open to change, and realize that when you look in the mirror, who controls change? It's a person that's looking back on you. So I'm going to see how I'm going to ask Otis to deliver a quote one more time for those of you that just joined in, and give Curtis a little chance to kind of set up his thoughts. Otis, do you mind?
We help out here. And our quote: all that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you.
All right, Curtis.
So happy Sunday to all. It's always a joy being with this group of folk that brings so much energy, so much joy, and so many thoughtful ideas to the table. So I'm going to just share with you a story that just happened to me yesterday. I went to a professional development, if you want to call it that, but it was a group of 30 people, most of which I'd never met, for a facilitated session about how we are moving forward with our lives and how we can live the best life that we want to have, need to have, should have. And so when you arrived at 9 o'clock in the morning, these folks are strangers. By the time you left at 4 o'clock or so, these were all your best friends. And the way this interacts with the quote is, it was a day of change for everyone. Every conversation, every little nuance where you can bring something of yourself and talk to people, you were changing their lives and they were changing your life. And the point is, we have to keep taking a step forward every day. We can't go backwards. We can always change our pathway. So if you're a train going down the track, you want to make sure that as you go into the tunnel, that the light at the end of the tunnel is not another train. And so you can keep moving around, but you have to keep stepping forward no matter what's going on outside, and believe that there is a higher power that is taking you to what your true destiny is and what you were meant to do. And it's having those kinds of experiences, like being on the show and being in that room of people, all who are striving and going through different things and at different points in their life. And how did you interweave with them? How did you connect with them? How did you help them maybe see a different way they can get to the next place, just by being there and sharing your best self and them sharing their best selves with you? And that's why I love coming on here, because I always take away things that will make me a better person. And that's how the quote landed on me.
And that's something that we have to always consider and think about. Um, Small daily changes leads to major life transformations. Um, there's no such thing as a big idea that didn't start off small and grew from this. I mean, every house is built on a small foundation and you build from there. Every skyscraper starts on the same foundation and looks over the landscape. That's the reason why when people do great things, they have small ideas and then great intentions that follow, and then they surround themselves like we have with this show, with people that are like-minded, that want to see each and every other person grow, and within themselves, they're learning, they're adapting, they're building, and they are resilient. I am so blessed to have such wonderful people surround me every Sunday at 9 a.m. to do this motivational Sundays with Kevin and friends. And I want to see how my friend Gilda um, interprets this quote, or what her perspective is on this quote. Miss Gilda James, Dancing Queen, how's this quote land on you?
There we go.
Grand Rising, everyone. This quote landed on me in 3 words: touch, change, repeat.
That's like one of my songs. Love you morning, noon, and night. Grand repeat. That's all right. Thank you, being short and sweet. Dr. Stephanie Blue. We're going to see how this quote lands on you. And we know change is coming. Everyone knows this change is coming, and we need to be prepared. Gather your things, uh, connect you hook your wagon to someone that's not dragging their feet on their dreams, and it's coming. All right. Dr. Blue, how's this quote land on you?
Okay. Otis, you want to give me that quote one more again?
Absolutely. That you touch, you change. All that you change changes you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you guys. PJ, oh my gosh. Moving forward, you go after me, okay? Because you may not cry, but you bring up those tears in my inner spirit. Thank you guys for sharing how that touched you. Touch, Christopher, like that's the word right there, all that you touch, right? And sometimes, we think of touch as, a hug. There's so much in a hug, you know, who we hold hands with. It's so much in that, Kevin, right? But spirit to spirit, touch and spirit to spirit was all that this quote was for me, so all that you touch, all, right? Gilda, Queen of Words, right? All is important in this quote. That means everything. That means everything. It's inclusive, everybody, everything that I touch. And we can do that every day. And that's how I walk through the world. I walk through the world intentional to make sure that I touch someone every single day. Sometimes we don't think about that. We don't think about how we touch people, right? I love touching the youth all the time, right? Just saying a little word, giving them some kind of encouragement, giving them a compliment. You'd be surprised, saying something to someone that will produce a smile when you walk away, right? And in your heart, in your spirit that you changed that person. Just for that moment, you changed them. You don't know what they may have been going through that day. You don't know what you could have run into them on the worst day of their life, the worst day of their life. But there's so much power in that touch, so much power in our words that we have the ability to change that person in that moment. Sometimes I don't think we realize how powerful we actually are, because we are. I laugh today because I use my powers for good and not for evil, right? Because there was a time when I used that power for evil all day, all day. That's the self-centeredness of that we have that lives underneath us, right? But my intentional service is to make sure that I change the heart, change the look, change the mind, change the thought on someone else every single day. So the second part of that quote is all that you change changes you, because then I become changed. What that does is that it draws me closer to my God. It draws me close. Just those little acts of service draw me closer. I live for that every single day. People say all the time, oh, well, you should be doing this or you should. No, I am right where I'm supposed to be. Well, do you know how much? No. I get it. But I am right where I'm supposed to be. And ultimately, since Gilda added on a third, which is a repeat, I love the repeat. I'm going to add a third part to this as well. Because then God changes things for me. And I've already looked at the changes he's made in my life and what he's brought me from and where I am today. There's no bigger change than that. So I look at it as an honor and a privilege, which is why it's intentional, to make sure that I touch somebody every single day. And what that does is it grows my heart. Like anybody's ever seen The Grinch that Stole Christmas? And at the end, the Grinch's heart just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like right here, I just want it to be so big that I am filled every single day. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Kevin. I appreciate you. I love you. And thank you.
Sorry to follow that. And I love you too, Miss Stephanie Blue. Intentional change always leans itself towards purposeful conversation, purposeful meaning, and purposeful living. I will tell you, Otis, when we get to this point of the show, it reminds me of a conversation I had during the speech that I had prepared this wonderful speech and did not know I was speaking to 1,500 people. And originally I was supposed to be the opening speaker. And they had someone else that came on and they spoke because they were in the room. And the first three things that I had in my opening, they did my opening. And going, okay, can't do that. Then they brought on two more speakers. And all of a sudden I looked at my notes and I'm going, okay, they used that quote. Can't use that. And so being on the show is like that day that I sat up there and I had to ball up all of my notes because the four people that spoke before me is like going and saying that I only had one hit song and I'm at the Grammys and they're going to play my song. But guess what? Sitting in the audience is Prince, and they asked Prince to come up and play. And then they turn around, Elton John is sitting over the corner and say, Elton John, come up and join Prince on the piano, and they're jamming. And then the producer yells back and says, Kevin, you're coming out on the stage. And then, Lord and behold, just like my next person on here, the lady with the golden voice, Miss Anne Marie, comes Michael Jackson. And Prince, Michael Jackson, and Elton John are on the stage. And then it says, now introducing Kevin and his one song, and I'm coming up, I'm going, how do you follow that? So, Otis, you and I, when we have to follow so many of our wonderful co-hosts with so many interpretations of this quote, two hardest people to follow on this show. Well, matter of fact, I can't say two hardest because each one of them brings in and drops a mic between Larnez, PJ, Dr. Blue, and then here we go, Otis. I'm going to leave you to follow Anne-Marie Maloney. Otis, let's set up the quote before we end the show. And all right, bring it. Go ahead, Otis.
That you touch, you change. All that you change changes you.
All right. And for those of you that does not know Maya Angelou, we have her little sister here. Go ahead, do your thing, Anne-Marie.
Listen, but do we have to change though? Speaking for you, you know, when you wake up in the morning and oh my goodness, something else is hurting. And I'm just like, how did I get here? Those are some changes. Do we have to change? Can I just hold on? Can I just control what I know within my purview? Yes, everybody. Grand Rising, Grand Rising. The message is clear. We are here to be changed. And I want to thank all of you because the name of my LLC is Becoming Enough, Becoming You. And we're all talking about becoming. So we're going to take a look at this playback. This idea of becoming is that every choice, every relationship, every experience, it reshapes you in who you are becoming. You know, when you're young and somebody asks you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And there's this thinking, this thought, I want to be a doctor or I want to be a scientist, a teacher, or what have you. And you come to believe that once you make a selection, you are that for the rest of your life, your entire life. That is outdated because when you mature, you put away childish things and you come to realize those things are not finite. You are always changing, you are always growing, you are always evolving. And so in your lifetime, you are becoming something new again each time. So when people look for their life purpose, and can't you tell I was one of those persons always looking for the life purpose? It becomes the idea that the might not be for your entire lifespan. The purpose could be a season in your life in terms of what are you here for. People who are close to you become co-authors in your change. And what I have to say for that is choose wisely because if you're going to be around people, not if, but when you are around people, they rub off on you and you rub off on them. So between the hand holding, between the high fives, what is the change and the impact of somebody with you? So I wanted to read a shortened version of this poem. Passing through moment to moment, season to season, loss to loss, love to love. Taste and see. Every touch is a teaching. Every change is a calling. Every breaking open, making room. You are what you've touched, and what has touched you is grace. We're in 1,000 different faces calling you by one name, becoming. It is Palm Sunday, so I just want to say and give honor and glory to our Lord and Savior. And I want to say to our audience something to think about in your reflection and journaling. What is the change you keep postponing that your future self is waiting on? What is the change you keep postponing that your future self is waiting on? It's not falling apart, it's becoming. I close with this. Write one word on a piece of paper that names who you are becoming and keep it, post it somewhere where you can see it. Speak it into existence, into existence. That's how the quote landed on me.
Learning allows you to adapt to your resilience. And thank you for that. And I want to recognize as an echo, piggyback off of Sunday to everyone and Otis. All right, it's that time of the show. All right, let's get the quote one more time and let's share how the quote landed on you.
To touch, you change. All that you change changes you. There's two things that I jotted down, and I think back when I was at a marketing meeting that we heard a story of a young boy who was out by the beachside, and he saw all these starfish that had washed ashore. And then he started picking up one by one and tossing it back into the ocean. And this old man walks up to him and says, "Son, what are you doing? You're not going to make a change. You're not going to make a difference." The yellow boy picked up the next starfish, threw it back in the ocean, and said, "I made a difference in that one's life." That's change. And on my personal note, and I even think of change as being like a domino effect. And I think of my mom and how she tried to instruct me on finances and other things in life. As a youngster, we fail. We don't listen right away. But as we get older, we realize what your folks and your parents were trying to do. And when I had my friend's 2 kids, I'm doing the same with them. And when I had one of them up here to work on the elections, that made a difference and made a change in that one's life. So even if you're changing one person's life, you still made a change.
All right. We've had some very, very powerful and personal exchanges, emotional exchanges about this quote and change. For me, this quote reminds me that change is constant and is unavoidable. Every action we take, every relationship we engage in, every environment we step into leaves an impact, not just on the world around us, but on ourselves. Growth, evolution, and transformation are all parts of life's natural rhythm. The more we interact with life, the more we shape it, and in return, life shapes us. The truth is, change is not something we resist. It is something that we understand and we embrace. Embrace change as part of your life's journey. Every step you take is shaping your future. Every experience you have is building your character. And when you approach life with awareness and intention, you gain the ability to guide growth instead of being controlled by it. Change is not your enemy. Change is the greatest teacher. Shift, touch, hold someone's hand, speak into it what you're grateful for, and be open to change. So I want to thank my wonderful, highly intelligent co-hosts, Anne-Marie, Christopher and Gilda James, Larnez, Kinsey, Curtis Battle, Dr. Stephanie Blue, PJ Stroud. I want to thank you for every single week helping me to make a positive impact on someone that is sitting in a room alone, someone that's guessing and trying to figure this life out. And you guys are giving answers to questions that people are afraid to ask themselves. And sometimes you guys touch so deeply, you change someone just by saying hello, just by saying you care. My grandfather always said, when you get to a place in life that you can help someone else out, he said it's your duty to do so. He said, reach one, teach one. And with that said, we what?
Good luck.
And make sure you come back.
Yes, sir. And until next time, until next week with our quote, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I want to thank everyone for sharing. I want to thank everyone that went to our YouTube page and looked up R&K Productions and Network and made comments. I just want to thank you for being there with us. And I hope you enjoyed the change, because change needs to come. If it's not coming, it needs to come. And if you want to know where change starts, go look in the mirror. The change starts within you. And with that said, we're out. Till next week.
Welcome Motivation Sunday with Kevin and friends.